Keanu Reeves is known for staying quiet, avoiding drama, and never speaking badly about anyone. So when his name suddenly got dragged into a story involving Whoopi Goldberg, people didn't expect what came next. At first glance, it looked like he had taken a stand. But the truth behind it was far more complicated than anyone imagined. What really happened wasn't about conflict. It was about how quickly a lie can spread when the internet wants it to. And once you see how this story unfolded, you'll understand why even Keanu Reeves couldn't ignore it anymore. The story didn't begin with Keanu Reeves saying anything at all. In fact, that silence is exactly what made it so dangerous. A single post appeared online, written in a way that sounded confident and authoritative, claiming that Reeves had refused to present a Lifetime Achievement Award to Whoopi Goldberg and had even gone as far as calling her not a good person. It didn't look like a rumor. It looked like a statement. The wording was clean, direct, and emotionally charged, engineered to make people react before they had time to think. Within just a few hours, the post exploded across social media, pulling in over 2 million views and thousands of comments from users who accepted it as fact without hesitation. What made the situation escalate so quickly was how believable it felt on the surface. Keanu Reeves has spent decades building a public image that is quiet, respectful, and deliberate. He rarely speaks out unless necessary, and he avoids controversy whenever possible. On the other hand, Whoopi Goldberg has built her career on being outspoken, unfiltered, and willing to say things others might avoid. That contrast created the perfect setup. To many people scrolling through their feeds, the idea that Reeves might have drawn a line against someone like Goldberg didn't feel far-fetched. It felt plausible enough to be true, and that was all it needed to spread. But beneath that surface, there was a glaring issue that few people stopped to examine. There was no original source. No interview clip, no press statement, no event footage, not even a second-hand quote from a credible journalist. There was nothing, just a sentence repeated over and over again. Despite that, the post continued to circulate, gaining more traction as people added their own opinions on top of it. Comments like, "Good for him," and "Finally someone said it," began to dominate the conversation, turning the claim into something that felt socially validated rather than questioned. As more users engaged with it, the story began to take on a life of its own. It didn't stay as one post, it multiplied. Other pages and websites started copying the exact same wording, repackaging it with different headlines, thumbnails, and captions. Some even added extra details to make it sound more official, including references to a so-called Lifetime Achievement Award by the TV Production Committee. It sounded legitimate enough that most people didn't stop to ask whether such an award even existed, which, in reality, it didn't. By this point, the narrative had already formed in people's minds. It was no longer about whether the story was true. It was about how widely it had been accepted. What started as a single, unsupported claim had turned into something that looked like confirmed news, simply because it had been repeated enough times. And through all of it, the most important detail remained unchanged. Keanu Reeves had never said a word. As the story continued to spread, a closer look at where it actually came from revealed something that completely changed the entire narrative. The headline that had triggered millions of reactions didn't originate from a credible news organization, a verified interview, or even a known insider source. Instead, it traced back to a website called the Dunning-Kruger Times, a platform that openly identifies itself as satire. Not analysis, not opinion, but intentionally fictional content written to resemble real headlines and provoke emotional responses from readers. The issue is that almost no one saw that context. The article itself was carefully structured to sound believable. It laid out a scenario in which Keanu Reeves had allegedly refused to present an award to Whoopi Goldberg, framing his supposed decision as a matter of personal integrity. It didn't read like a joke. It read like a report. It included specific details, including mention of a Lifetime Achievement Award by the TV Production Committee, which gave the story an extra layer of credibility. To the average reader, scrolling quickly through social media, there was nothing obviously fake about it. But in reality, that award doesn't exist, and neither does the event described in the article. Christopher Blair, the writer behind the site, has never hidden the intention behind his work. He has openly stated that everything published under that network is satire, created without any real sources, and built entirely around fictional confirmation bias. The goal is not to inform, but to expose how easily people accept information that aligns with their existing beliefs. In simple terms, the content is designed to trick people, not through complexity, but through familiarity. What made this particular case so effective was how quickly the story escaped its original environment. The moment it left the satire site, it lost its context. Social media users began sharing cropped screenshots of the headline, removing any reference to where it came from. Others rewrote the claim in their own words, presenting it as if it had been confirmed elsewhere. Some smaller websites went even further, republishing the same narrative without mentioning that it originated from satire at all. With each repost, the story became more detached from its source and more convincing to new audiences. By the time fact-checkers stepped in, the situation had already escalated beyond control. Reuters later investigated and confirmed that the claim was entirely false, pointing directly to the satirical origin and clarifying that no such award or incident had ever taken place. But their correction moved at a fraction of the speed of the original story. It didn't generate the same emotional reactions, and it didn't benefit from the same viral momentum. That imbalance is what makes the situation so revealing. It shows how misinformation doesn't need strong evidence to spread. It only needs to feel believable in the moment. Once people stop questioning and start reacting, a fictional story can move through millions of screens as if it were real. And by the time the truth arrives, it often feels like an afterthought. What makes the situation even more ironic is how sharply it contrasts with the actual dynamic between Keanu Reeves and Whoopi Goldberg. There has never been a public feud, no record of tension, and certainly no instance where Reeves expressed anything negative about her. If anything, the only widely recognized interaction between the two is not dramatic or confrontational. It's awkward, humorous, and completely harmless. And yet, that single real moment says far more about their relationship than any viral headline ever could. That moment took place during an appearance on The Graham Norton Show, where both Reeves and Goldberg were guests in what initially felt like a standard, lighthearted interview. Goldberg, known for her fearless honesty, was discussing her stand-up material at the time, particularly how she was incorporating aging into her comedy. She wasn't trying to soften the topic or make it polite. She approached it the same way she approaches everything else, directly and without hesitation. The conversation shifted when she casually referenced a phrase that immediately caught attention: balding pudenda. It wasn't a phrase most people would expect to hear on a talk show, and it instantly created a moment of tension mixed with curiosity. Reeves, sitting beside her, reacted in a way that felt completely genuine. He didn't jump in confidently or pretend to understand. Instead, he paused, visibly unsure, and asked what it meant. Even before she explained, he seemed to sense that he might regret asking. His response captured that perfectly. "Oh, wait, do I want to know what this is? Let's hear it. I'm really scared." That hesitation is what made the moment so real. Reeves is known for maintaining composure in almost any situation, rarely showing discomfort in public settings. But here, he was clearly caught off guard. Goldberg, on the other hand, leaned fully into the moment. She didn't soften the explanation or hold anything back. Instead, she delivered it in her signature style, blunt, humorous, and unapologetically vivid. She compared what once existed, like an afro, to something now completely gone, joking that it had become like Paul Schaffer's head. As she spoke, Reeves physically reacted in a way that made the exchange even more memorable. He leaned back, lifted his hands slightly, as if to create distance, and tried to process what he was hearing while still keeping a sense of humor about it. He wasn't offended and he wasn't judging, he was simply overwhelmed in that moment, reacting the way many people might if caught in the same situation. The audience laughed, not because there was tension between them, but because the contrast was so clear, and that contrast is exactly what defines their interaction. Whoopi Goldberg has built her identity on speaking openly, often pushing boundaries without worrying about how it will be received. Keanu Reeves, by contrast, is known for being reserved, thoughtful, and measured in everything he says. When those two energies meet, the result isn't conflict, it's unpredictability. That's why this moment matters. It shows that there is no hidden hostility, no underlying issue waiting to be exposed. What actually exists is a simple dynamic. One person who says whatever comes to mind, and another who occasionally finds himself trying to keep up. So while the internet pushed a narrative about tension and judgment, the only real interaction anyone can point to is one where Keanu Reeves wasn't exposing anything at all. He was just trying to understand what he had gotten himself into. What this situation really exposed wasn't anything about Whoopi Goldberg, but everything about how quickly public perception can be manipulated. The moment that fake headline went viral, people didn't stop to verify it. They reacted first, and those reactions weren't neutral. Many immediately took sides, praising Keanu Reeves for something he never actually did, while criticizing Goldberg based on a quote that never existed. This is where the psychology behind it becomes important. The story worked because it aligned with what different groups of people already believed. Whoopi Goldberg has always been outspoken, often discussing politics, social issues, and personal topics without filtering herself. That openness has earned her both admiration and criticism over the years. So when a headline appeared suggesting that someone like Keanu Reeves had publicly rejected her, it confirmed a narrative that some people were already willing to accept. At the same time, Reeves's reputation played a huge role. He is widely seen as humble, kind, and private. That image made the claim feel more powerful. People assumed that if someone like him were to say something negative, it must be serious. That assumption added weight to a story that had no real foundation. The most striking detail is how little effort it took for the claim to spread compared to the effort required to correct it. Platforms like X have systems such as community notes that allow users to add context or corrections, but in this case, the viral post gained millions of views without any visible warning attached to it. By the time fact checks appeared, the original impression had already settled in people's minds. Even when presented with evidence that the story came from a satire site, some users continued to believe it. Others dismissed the correction entirely, choosing to trust the version that matched their initial reaction. This is what makes misinformation so persistent. It doesn't rely on facts. It relies on emotional alignment. In the end, nothing about the story reflected reality. Keanu Reeves didn't expose anything, didn't refuse anything, and didn't say anything about Whoopi Goldberg at all. But the way people responded to the story revealed something much bigger than the claim itself. By the time the truth fully surfaced, the story had already done what it was designed to do: capture attention, trigger reactions, and spread faster than anyone could contain it. Reuters eventually stepped in and confirmed what should have been obvious from the beginning. The entire claim was false. It originated from a satirical article, describing a completely non-existent award written with no factual basis whatsoever. Even the creator of the site openly admitted that everything published there is fictional, built purely to exploit confirmation bias. But here's what makes this story worth paying attention to. The correction never traveled as far as the lie. Millions of people saw the original claim. Far fewer saw the explanation. And even among those who did, not everyone accepted it. Some had already made up their minds. Others didn't care whether it was true or not because the story itself felt satisfying. That imbalance is exactly why stories like this keep happening. They don't need to be accurate, they just need to be believable enough for a few seconds. For Keanu Reeves, the situation didn't require a response. His silence, in this case, said more than any statement could. He didn't confirm the story, didn't deny it publicly, and didn't engage with the controversy at all. That choice fits perfectly with how he has handled his career for decades, avoiding unnecessary noise and letting actions, not rumors, define him. And for Whoopi Goldberg, this was just another example of how being outspoken can make someone an easy target for narratives that don't exist. Her personality, the same one that made Keanu Reeves visibly nervous during that now famous interview moment, is also what keeps her constantly in the spotlight, whether the attention is fair or not. In the end, there was no hidden feud, no dramatic confrontation, and no shocking truth being exposed. What people thought they were seeing was never real. The only thing that was real was how quickly millions of people believed it. So what do you think? Would you have believed that story if you saw it first without context? Drop your answer in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that reveal what's really going on behind the headlines.